In this video, I wanted to talk about the benefit of hiring slowly and firing quickly, particularly in a startup or scale up. So, what are the pros and cons? How do you go about that? And why is it beneficial? My name's Alysha Randall. I'm a fractional CFO, and I also train new and aspiring CFOs that work within startups and scale ups. And I'm also the author of this book, Financial Leadership Fundamentals: How to Become a CFO in a Startup or Scale Up. So, as I mentioned today, I wanted to talk about the benefits of hiring slowly and firing quickly within a startup. The importance of hiring slowly starts long before the contract is signed. It is right at the beginning of looking at the company's culture, the ethos, and the trajectory of the role. So, making sure that when you're putting a job description together and what type of person you want, rather than just pulling the job spec that you had previously or from an old company, instead, you're really considering what you want this person to look like. A big part of hiring for this role is that the person has to fit within the culture. So if somebody hasn't worked within a startup before, you may need to really check that they're going to suit the startup culture, which is quite different to large corporations or an audit firm. So making sure that they're not only going to work closely within the finance function with all the people within the team, but they're also going to be a good business partner to the rest of the business. I know that when you really have a gap to fill, particularly in a startup culture where you are constantly firefighting, you really do want to just find someone quickly to fill the role. Unfortunately, if you do this, you may have headaches further down the line. So it is that short-term pain for long-term gain. So try to go against your natural instinct to hire quickly as soon as someone looks good enough. If you do have a gap that you really need to fill and it is becoming a real problem, you may want to consider filling that gap with a contractor. So somebody that can work with you for 1 to 3 months while you're spending time looking for the right person who will take that long-term position. You may even find that this contractor may be good enough for the role, but that's not necessarily the point of hiring the contractor. You're getting a contractor in so that they can fill in the gap and so that you can really take the time to find the right person. So take the time. Hiring isn't a race. Really find the right person it is going to culturally fit within the business and really suit the role that you're hiring for. I will also say that you may even want to hire someone that is slightly better than the role that you're hiring for. If you think about it, the startup may be double in size in 1 to 2 years, and therefore the role that you're hiring for today would become quite junior in comparison. So if you're hiring for someone who has the skills for today, they may be too junior for the size of the company in 2 years' time. So there's two ways of tackling this. Either hire someone who's more experienced, particularly if you're pretty confident in the growth of the business, and they will really suit the size of the business in 1 to 2 years' time, or hire someone that looks like they can learn quite quickly through testing and talking to their references and are very keen to grow into the role that you're proposing in 1 to 2 years. When hiring for junior roles, I would absolutely get them to do mini tests. I wouldn't necessarily do Excel tests to just check their knowledge because nowadays you can just do all of that checking in ChatGPT. But rather, it's doing tests that will check their logic, check their understanding. So, can they understand the task properly and implement what you've asked them to do, and also problem solving. These three tasks or these three characteristics aren't necessarily teachable. And so you want somebody who is able to follow instructions properly, understands basic commercials, and is also able to solve problems. And if you can find someone like that and test them on these three skills, then you will be quite surprised the difference in responses you get with these tests. I have certainly found people that are amazing in an interview and are really able to sell themselves, and on paper they look amazing, but they fail the test miserably. And then on the flip side, I find someone who's really difficult to talk to and doesn't necessarily look like they have the great skills, but do wonderfully well in the test. Ideally, you want somebody who's able to do both. You want somebody who can communicate really well, is easy to talk to, easy to work with, is able to sell themselves to a point, and is also amazing on the test. So it's really worthwhile doing both a test and multiple interviews so that you get the full round picture of what the person is potentially like. And then part of this interview process, I would definitely include other people. So there will probably be up to 3 interviews with these potential candidates. So more junior roles, you may want to have somebody else within the finance team and then somebody around the business that can help with cultural fit. If they're a slightly more senior, then I would definitely get them to be interviewed by the business partners, people that they will probably be working with, and then you may want to consider more interviews than just the 3. It is worthwhile getting a full review board just because everybody has a small amount of unconscious bias. I'm not necessarily talking about gender and race. I'm talking about the type of people that you generally like. So personally, I am a big picture person. I really like strategy. I really like commercials. And therefore, somebody who is similar to me, I really click with because we're similar. Whereas ideally, I should be, and I do, hire people that are much more detail orientated. So understanding your strengths and weaknesses and having people that are different to you, being part of that interview process is really important because then you get a more balanced viewpoint. It's also worthwhile considering what are the type of people that you generally like. You don't want to have a team of mini-me's, essentially. You do want to have different skill sets and different strengths within the team. So identifying what you are really good at, what the team is really good at, and potentially what the gap is, so you're very clear on what you're hiring, also helps with making sure that you don't just hire mini versions of yourself. Once you have made an offer to somebody and they have accepted the role, I find that it's very important to then have a 90-day onboarding plan. The reason for this is because generally people come on a 3-month probation. You want to give this person all of the tools, the goals, the encouragement, the opportunity to pass this 3-month probation. It is not unheard of that somebody doesn't pass their probationary, not because they're not skilled enough, but because they haven't been given the guidance, they haven't been given the understanding of what their role is about, and therefore they're flapping about a bit and probably wasting a lot of time because they don't really know what they should be doing. And because of this lack of leadership, they fail their probationary period and then you're back to square one. So make sure you have a really detailed 90-day onboarding plan that you go through with this new person in the first week that they start working for you, and then you check in with them on a regular basis. So it gives them the opportunity to ask questions, and also it gives you an opportunity to give them feedback, both good and constructive, so that by the end of the 90 days, both of you know immediately whether they have passed their probationary period or not. It shouldn't be a surprise if they pass or fail by the end of the 90 days. If it is a surprise, then you haven't done your job properly as a leader. So make sure that you give them all the tools that they need to pass their probation. And then jumping ahead to firing fast, the really difficult decision. If somebody has passed their probation, they have been given all of the tools that they need. They have been given a performance review if they needed. You have gone through the proper processes with HR to give this person the best opportunity that you possibly can so that they can succeed in the role. And unfortunately, it becomes quite obvious that they're not quite gelling with the team. There perhaps isn't a cultural fit, or their skills aren't at the level that you need. There is no point in ignoring this fact and putting your head in the sand. You must deal with this quickly. If you don't, it'll be to the detriment to the team, the detriment to the culture in your team, and also to the detriment of the business. Startups move really fast, and you are heavily reliant on a strong A team behind you to help you get to where you want to be. If you have somebody in your team that is not pulling their weight, the rest of the team is going to complain. The rest of the team is going to have a problem with that. You may not hear about it, but they will certainly be talking about it in the kitchen or on messaging or at the pub, wherever they're talking about you behind your back, essentially. So make sure that you deal with it head on. You can't ignore it. Work with HR and work out how you can deal with this situation quickly. So the longer you leave it, the more a problem this is going to become. So as I said, hire slowly and fire fast. So while letting somebody go is never easy, it's really critical to prioritize the company and the team's overall health and morale. So that is my thinking on hiring slowly and firing fast. I go through this in much more detail in my book, of course. I'll leave the link below, and also in the course that helps implement these strategies. If you're interested in free leadership guides, I'll leave those links below as well, and you can download a finance leadership guide to help you get to that CFO role within a startup and scale up. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next week. Thanks.